Hello everyone, my name is Tshepo Masilela. I'm the director at Tshepo Masilela Attorneys. I'm also an admitted attorney registered with the Legal Practice Council of South Africa. Today's topic is about civil claims for delictual damages. Now, what does that mean? A civil claim for delictual damages is basically a court process in which one person brings a claim against another person to claim compensation for losses suffered as a result of the negligent conduct of that other person. So, to put it simply, if one person behaves or conducts themselves in a negligent manner, and as a result of that person's negligent conduct, you suffer financial loss, then you have a right to bring a civil case to claim compensation for the loss that you have suffered. For example, if you are living in an apartment complex and the person living in the upstairs unit leaves their tap running the whole day, locks their apartment, goes to work, and the apartment floods and your apartment downstairs is also flooded to such an extent that your appliances are damaged, you will have the right to bring a civil claim for damages against the person that has negligently left their taps running. So you have the right to be placed or restored to the position you would have been in had this person not engaged in that negligent conduct. Another example would be a motor collision. If another driver drives negligently on a public road and as a result of that negligence, a collision results, you, as what I will refer to as the innocent driver, will have the right to bring a civil claim for damages against the negligent driver. Now, in order to succeed with a claim for delictual damages, you have to prove two things. Firstly, you have to prove that the defendant was negligent. And secondly, you have to prove the quantum of your claim. Now, in proving that the defendant was negligent, the court will look at whether the defendant exercised a reasonable standard of care in the way the defendant conducted themselves. In other words, did they act according to the standard of care that would be expected under the circumstances? So the specific circumstances of each case are always very important. So another example that I will give is medical negligence. So if somebody is in the hospital and there is no proper monitoring of the patient, and perhaps the patient stops breathing and the hospital records show that they were not checked in a period of 6 hours post their operation, the medical staff will have acted below the expected standard of care under the circumstances, because it would be expected that post-operation a patient would be monitored probably every 30 minutes or every hour or whatever the acceptable standard is. So the question of negligence is always measured against the reasonable standard of care under the circumstances. And if the defendant is found to have acted less than the standard of care that would have been expected, then they will be found to be negligent. Another test for negligence is the reasonable person test. This is a principle that has been developed over the years through case law, where the courts look at whether a reasonable person faced with similar circumstances would have behaved differently. So this is called the reasonable person test. So if the court looks at the particular circumstances and the court finds that a reasonable person under the circumstances would have foreseen the particular harm and would have taken steps to mitigate the harm, then if the defendant is found to have failed to do that, then they will be found to have been negligent. So, for example, if you speed, you drive at excessive speed in an area with a school, and you collide into school children, which may result in their injury or death, the court will find that a reasonable person would have foreseen that driving at an excessive speed in that area might result in harm to school-going children. And a reasonable person might have mitigated that foreseeable harm by driving within the speed limit. So that defendant will be found to have been negligent. Once you have convinced the court that the defendant was indeed negligent, meaning his actions were wrongful, and that they should be liable to compensate you for the losses that you have suffered, then the next thing that you need to do is to prove your quantum. Now, quantum is the claim amount that you are asking the court to order. How much are you asking the court to pay, to order the defendant to pay you? In order to prove quantum, there's several things that you can do. If you have already repaired the damages to your property, or you have already replaced lost property, then you can prove quantum by simply producing your receipts and proof of payments, etc. If you have not yet repaired or replaced your damaged property, then you can prove your quantum by providing quotations. The court will normally go with the lowest of 3 comparative quotations. In the case of motor collisions, the court will be more satisfied with an assessor's report rather than a quotation, because with quotations from panel beaters, you can go to 3 different panel beaters and come out with drastically different quotations. So what is usually regarded as a more reliable proof of quantum is an assessor's report. You may also prove quantum by calling expert witnesses. For example, if the damage is to your building, you might want to bring in a construction expert as an expert witness to give evidence as to the quantum of the damages that you have suffered. Remember, the court will not overcompensate you. So the court will never order the defendant to pay more than your actual loss suffered. So you have to prove actual loss suffered. The aim is to restore you to the position that you were in before the event that led to your losses. So we cannot have a situation where you are left enriched by your civil claim for damages. It must just put you back to the position that you would have been in had you not suffered the loss due to the negligence of the defendant. So that is, in a nutshell, what delictual damages are. In our next video, we will discuss the court process for bringing a civil claim for damages, as well as how to enforce a judgment once you have obtained a judgment at civil court. In our next video, we will discuss the court process for bringing a claim for damages, as well as how to enforce a judgment against the defendant if he does not comply with it. See you next time.